everybody. My name is Clark Wolf. I've taken over the San Francisco studio, and I'm here with Jack DeVries, and we are going to tell you what needs to happen. No discussion. Needs to happen in Avengers 4. And fair warning, spoilers here. Spoilers for Infinity War and some of our theories that are pulled from the comics, et cetera, et cetera. So you have been warned. Okay, so first things first, I think we need to talk about what is going to happen between Cap and Iron Man.
Yeah.
So that's a huge unresolved issue. At the end of Civil War, you know, they're still mad at each other, but Cap kind of sends him a little message and says, look, if you ever need anything, call me, right? But they never come face to face in Infinity War. So you were saying that you think one of them needs to die in Avengers 4. So what do you, set that up for me and tell me who you think needs to die in Avengers 4.
Ooh, so the idea of sacrifice has kind of always been part of this arc and stuff. We got to see like Thanos had to commit like a really heavy sacrifice to get the Soul Stone. So that's kind of like already set there that we know that there's going to be loss in this. And there has been so far, but not like real loss, right? Like we're expecting it to turn around at least in some capacity. And we know that it will because heroes can't let half the universe be dead.
Of course.
So like they're gonna save the day. But I think part of that we've kind of all felt that one of them is going to fall, and a lot of people thought it was going to happen in this film, but because they were on opposite sides of the universe for the entire movie, it couldn't happen, because I think it's really important that before one of them goes, they kind of reconcile their differences. And my guess, even though all of my guesses have been wrong so far, so like, what do I know, is that Cap's the one to go.
Yeah.
Because I think right now we have a setup where Tony Stark has a future, and it would be a really big gut punch to like, you know, get rid of Pepper or him and not have a wedding and not do all this, but like Cap doesn't have that. He doesn't have a family, because Pepper's definitely pregnant. And so I think that's him. I think it's his sacrifice to save Tony.
You know what I just watched 7 this weekend. And if Pepper is pregnant.
What's in the box, Thanos?
Okay, sorry, that was a little bit of a side note, but as soon as you said Pepper's totally pregnant, I was like, oh my God, not again. Ooh, I guess spoilers for 7 too? I don't know. Okay, well, I take your point and I agree with you. I think, and not to be cynical about it, but as people who kind of follow the MCU, we do know that Chris Evans has talked about how he's felt like he's had a great run as Captain America, but maybe he's gonna be done after Avengers 4. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to have to die. He could just kind of ride off into the sunset. But I do think that fans were anticipating Cap maybe dying in Infinity War. They certainly wanted us to think that by showing us that image of him like, raw, you know, with Thanos. So, and I am with you. I know that some people around these parts think that Tony's gonna go too. But I think that he's gonna stick around. I think that Robert Downey Jr. is such an important part of the MCU. And yes, it would be really cool to see like Shuri maybe become the new Iron Man. Like, and maybe she could become the new Iron Man, but Tony's still around, kind of being the grumpy old uncle to all the little Avengers. I don't know. But I think that Downey still has a lot of really cool stuff that he could do, and maybe a supporting role in the future of the MCU.
For sure, yeah. And in the comics, for both of these characters, there are stories where they pass the torch.
Right.
And right now in the MCU, we have that path for Cap. We have multiple characters who could fill the role. People who have in the comics, like Sam, who could become the new Captain America and have that. And we don't really have that for Iron Man. He's got that great relationship with Spider-Man, but it's not the same thing. It's not his protege.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so just to touch on one more thing with regards to Iron Man, you know, something that is huge that happens in Infinity War is Doctor Strange says, listen, I saw how this is all gonna go. There's one outcome where this is gonna be successful, and you need to be alive, essentially. And so he keeps Tony alive because Tony is going to be a really important part of the future. So do we have to figure out what the end game is? I feel like we do.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Presumably the end game is, winning, but like it's so they have to reverse what's been done.
Right.
It feels like that is definitely going to be the entire plot of the next film is undoing it. I agree with you that like that was definitely what Doctor Strange was alluding to, and I think that like Tony's going to be the one to figure that out. And I thought that was interesting because it feels like maybe Doctor Strange's ability to see through time is not just omniscience, but maybe more based on his own actions. So he could see all the things that he did to affect things, and that's how he knew that he had to do that.
Very interesting. Well, before we get to the new crew that has come on board and entered into the Avengers universe and the MCU, let's talk about Bruce and Natasha, or Hulk and Black Widow. So together, they have some unresolved business.
For sure.
As somebody points out, it's awkward when they kind of are face to face, but we don't resolve not only their love story, but Bruce kind of just disappearing and pulling that, vanishing act. So
Ghosted.
yeah, he totally ghosted her. Shame on you. But so I guess my question is, what needs to happen in Avengers 4 to resolve this issue between Bruce and Natasha?
Ooh, obviously an apology is the way to start it out with. And I was a little disappointed that they didn't have a moment. It felt like at least some point in like the Avengers base, they should have maybe like talked a little bit or on the jet ride over. But, and maybe they did, and we just like haven't seen it, but they were a little busy. So clearly, I think they need to address that. I'm not a huge fan of their romance.
Agreed. I like them separately and as buddies, but I don't like the romance subplot.
Yeah, it just never felt like it added anything. And I was surprised at how much I actually was rooting for Vision and Scarlet Witches, because I didn't think I liked any of the romances, and then that one actually, like, they did a really good job with it, I felt. So I'm not sure they need to reconcile back to like a romantic situation, but they both still have those like conflicted feelings of like feeling like they're monsters. And honestly, Black Widow needs a lot more character development anyway. So like any more scenes where she gets to actually talk about herself would be great. But yeah, I'm not sure there's really a huge place they need to go together. But they can definitely be used to find their places on their own. Does that make sense?
Well, so actually, as you were talking, it just kind of dawned on me. So something that Natasha was able to do was really kind of calm Bruce when he is in his alter ego, right? And you know where I'm going with this. This literally just hit me. And so something that we see in Infinity War is that Bruce is having a really hard time convincing the Hulk to come out. And to, and it's a funny gag that sort of runs through the whole thing, but that has to be resolved, I feel, in some way. And we were talking earlier, as far as I could tell, I didn't see much of a precedent for that in the comics. I mean, maybe if they mentioned it, I don't think it was a huge arc. At least I couldn't find anything that spoke to that.
Yeah, I did some research, but to my knowledge, there hasn't been that kind of situation, and it's because the Hulk doesn't really lend itself to that situation, at least in the comic form. He's always been this kind of pure id, rage-powered person who's been beaten multiple times. He always comes back from it. He just gets angrier and comes back and fights harder. That's like kind of his whole thing. But this is the first time in the MCU he got defeated, and like soundly, from a character who got 6 times stronger over the course of the film. It's cool. I think it's a neat thing. It's probably one of the things that's making comic fans a little angry about it, because it is definitely like a shift from what they know for that character. But having the Hulk kind of be afraid is what it feels like of facing these things lends itself at least to like a bigger transformation for him.
Sure.
So I'm fine with that as a character thing. But yeah, it did feel weird for him to not show up. It's kind of he's always been reliable in that way. Like, even there have been times when Bruce is in total control, or like the Hulk isn't coming out for whatever reason, but like when push comes to shove, he shows up.
Right.
He's never not shown up to a fight, and that was a little weird to see.
So finally, let's talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp, and let's talk about some of this stuff, because there were some characters that were notably absent in Infinity War. One of my favorite new additions from Ragnarok was Valkyrie, and we feel like we are told that half of Asgard was spared, right, by Thanos. So I think it's safe to say that Valkyrie was probably made it, right?
Yeah, giving her an off-screen death would be a really poor way to handle that. Like, unless she just didn't want to come back to the films, but like it feels like she deserved better than that, and that they're keeping Asgard as a concept alive for like Thor to presumably be a part of. So yeah, I think we're gonna see Valkyrie come back. I really hope so. I really liked her character. I think it's a great addition to the MCU. So it'd be good to see that. Plus, you need a cavalry at this point, right? So like having a very strong character who also can lead other strong characters. There's a lot of powerful Asgardians, like essentially there could be a whole army worth of people, right? What's half of Asgard. And they're all of them, even normal citizens, would be comparatively strong, like superpowered people. So I think she's coming in. I think she's gonna like be one of those people who comes and saves the day. I think we're gonna see a lot of the kind of more cosmic elements of the MCU show up, or maybe just take the whole battle to space.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. So, and finally, we got to talk about Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Hawkeye. And Captain Marvel, of course.
Yeah.
So I think what needs to happen for them in Avengers 4. I mean, I'm thinking that I think the Wasp is going to end up playing a much bigger part in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, I think she's going to be a really important part of the MCU going forward. And also, I'd like to see, honestly, I'd like to see more from Paul Rudd on the serious side. I think that maybe in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the personal stakes for him could be raised. And as a result, they will have some real stuff to work through in Avengers 4. So I think that needs to happen. We need to have some emotional stakes for Ant-Man and the Wasp in Avengers 4, because I think Ant-Man and the Wasp, the movie, is going to be really fun.
Yeah, I agree. And my current theory, which is kind of terrible and I don't really want it to happen, but I don't think the MCU needs more than one hero who shrinks. And now we have two, and possibly a third, because it sounds like the plot's going to be about trying to rescue the original Wasp, and she's going to play into it somehow. So I'm not sure how many shrinking characters we end up with in the MCU. And one of the ways in which narratives like to add stakes is to get rid of someone that you really like and who's fun. And dang if that's not Paul Rudd.
No!
Right? Like, my prediction is that maybe Paul Rudd doesn't make it out of the Avengers films, and Wasp kind of becomes that very important character.
If Joss Whedon were in charge,
then
I would be like,
gone.
yeah, he killed Paul Rudd, and he killed him hard, and he's gonna kill him dead.
Right as he said, I can't believe I didn't die. Like something like that.
And then in true Joss Whedon, okay, but that's not in Avengers 4. That's just in my own head. I hope that doesn't happen, but I do think that their family or their close personal relationships are going to be in real trouble by the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp.
For sure, yeah. You mentioned family, and what's interesting about both Hawkeye and Ant-Man as characters in the comics is that they're both defined in part by the loss of their families. So in the ultimate version of the comics, which the MCU is largely based on, Clint's whole family gets assassinated by Black Widow, who was a spy, which is totally not where they went with it. So like they don't need to do that part. But like as a motivator right now, he's home, and that's where he wants to be. He's under house arrest. He needs a reason to come out, and like I'm thinking, we're watching them all disintegrate at the beginning of this like next film. But also, Scott Lang's version of Ant-Man has a very complicated relationship with his daughter, both in the films and the comics. She actually becomes an Ant-Man-like superhero in Young Avengers as she grows up, because he died in the comics during the Avengers Disassembled. Another reason why I think he might die. And he gets resurrected just in time for her to die in his arms. Like, it's terrible. But like both these characters have very tragic loss of children and loved one stories that kind of like had turned them from the fun characters into the serious characters. And it would be very heartbreaking, but it's kind of, they've been following the comics pretty closely, almost surprisingly closely. So makes me more and more worried for all my favorites.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. You know what else? As you were just talking, it reminded me that at the very end of Infinity War, when we cut to Thanos in his like happy home, essentially, I actually thought we were checking in on Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And so, what nice cinematic bookends it could be to end Infinity War with Thanos kind of sitting and relaxing, and then kind of picking up or seeing Hawkeye, and his whole family, the destruction that Thanos being able to sit there and just chill out for a little while would be, the consequences that has for somebody like him.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is what we think needs to happen in Avengers 4. But what do you think needs to happen? I'm sure you have theories and things we haven't even thought of. So tell us about it on Facebook and Twitter. And I think that's going to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for letting me crash your San Francisco studio.
Yeah, it's fun. Come by anytime.
Thank you. I will.